Bitcoiners, pre-coiners, no coiners, new coiners, welcome to Swan Lounge. Excuse me, coffee time. A weekly show in which you get to hang out with the Swan team and some of our friends from the incredibly exciting world of Bitcoin. Also, a quick shout out to everyone who is tuning in to the audio stream on Clubhouse. Please note that we will actually be doing a Q&A on Clubhouse after the show. Now, before we dive in, we are doing something that I think is very, very special. We are giving away Jan Pritzker's book for free in an effort to spread Bitcoin knowledge. You can get the book at swanbitcoin.com/free book. We have it in 3 different formats: ebook formats, MP3 read by our friend Guy Swan over at Bitcoin Audible. All we ask is that you pay it forward by sharing the book with friends and family, preferably at least 3 friends and family, but spread it far and wide. Send it to your entire network. We are trying to spread the good word about Bitcoin, and we want you to help us. And to all the Swan Force members out there, remember that if you look in your referral dashboard, you will find a way to give away the book and still get the credit for it if somebody signs up for Swan. So don't forget about that. And if you're not signed up for Swan Force yet, what are you doing? Get paid to recruit new Bitcoiners. Go to swanbitcoin.com/enlist. You will earn 25% of Swan's fees for 3 years, and the person who signs up with your link will get $10 when they open an account with Swan. Also, make sure to watch to the end of the episode because we have a very special segment called Swan Force Friday. I can't talk today. Swan Force Fridays, where we will put our guests on the clock and give them 60 seconds to give us their best Bitcoin pitch. Also, we have a surprise guest today, and I'm not going to tell you who it is, but you'll find out soon. I'd also like to simply welcome everyone who is new to the show and new to Swan Bitcoin. You know, what is Swan Bitcoin? Well, quite simply, we are the easiest and best way to buy Bitcoin in the United States. We're available at swanbitcoin.com, and we are live in all 50 states and territories, including Puerto Rico. We offer automatic recurring buys, instant buys, and we reach that. I really can't talk today, can I, folks? We recently launched Swan Private, which is for high net worth individuals. Swan Private is being led by the Bitcoin philosopher himself, Mr. Robert Breedlove, and we are so excited to have him join the team. If you're interested in those services, please visit swanbitcoin.com/private. Now, before I bring in our guests, one last thing. You know what this is. You watch the show, you love the show. You know what I'm going to ask, so please do it. Hit like and subscribe. It really does help us get seen on YouTube, and which helps us grow the show and helps us spread Bitcoin to more people. So now, without any further ado, because you're sick of hearing me talk and I'm sick of hearing me talk, it is time for Swan Lounge. Welcome, everybody. Wait, don't say anything yet. I haven't unmuted you. I always do this. I apologize. All right, now we're good. We're good to go. How's everybody doing today?
What's up?
Hello, hello.
How's everybody?
So
Hell yeah.
Introduce our guests real quick. We've got Dante Noir. I don't know if that's what you like to go by, but I'm calling you Dante Noir. We've got Camilla. We've got Isaiah Jackson, author of Bitcoin in Black America. We've got Aulani, who is one of my favorite people. She's part of Swan Force. She's been repping us so well everywhere. She has nothing but nice things to say about Swan.
Cheers.
Is a little suspect. So, you know, you can say some bad things about us if you got them, but, you know, whatever. Either way, of course, we've got Brady Swenson. And I don't know if I should give it away just yet who our surprise guest is, but it looks like Mr. Alex Gladstein has been joining us for 15, 20 minutes or so because he put out this incredible video, and we're actually going to watch that video to start us off today. But before we do, welcome to our guests. How are you all feeling today in the wide world of Bitcoin?
As ever, man, convicted, excited, humbled. I love this place. I love this industry. I love these people. Love you all Bitcoiners. We got a good group here today too.
Heck yeah, we do. Oh, Aulani, I think you're muted, or you're just quiet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Awesome. I'm really excited to be here. Camila hit me up and I'm like, girl, what am I going to do on there? And she's like, just go with the flow. Don't worry about it. And it's an honor to be here. I am a true fan of Swan, but I am, just getting more and more excited and hopeful with Bitcoin. And so it's an honor to be here. I don't know who else, but I came in like a happy hour. I got a beer going on, so
I'm with you.
don't judge.
Cheers.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Cheers.
Happy hour.
Cocktail.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Look, man. First, I'm missing the hat, and now I'm missing a drink. This is not working out well, man.
Well, you can step away if you need. You can step away if you need to, Dante. But you know what? You make up with it for it with that amazing voice, so it's all good.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no one can replicate that voice. So you beat us all.
We were. I've been laughing because Guy Swan has kind of made a name for himself as the voice of Bitcoin because he reads everything. But Dante, I don't know what voice this is. You're like the voice of God or voice of Satoshi, maybe. Something like that.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Hey, Dante, we got to get you reading the Bitcoin white paper as an NFT.
Yes,
we can get that going.
Get some champagne going on.
Oh yeah.
We can make that happen.
I'm not going to lie. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hoping that we'd get some great sound bites out of you later, Dante. Maybe we'll do some Bitcoin commercials towards the end, the Bitcoin pitch section. We might have to elongate it a little bit because we got to take advantage while you're here.
I'm here for that. It's all good. I'm ready.
So I think Alex will be joining us probably in maybe 10 minutes or so. So to kick us off, I call this episode Bitcoin and Freedom because there's a lot going on in the world right now. We'll touch on some of that, but Alex put out this fantastic video. So it's about 7 minutes long or so. I'm going to play that for everybody here. I'm going to stall for time while I get the video ready. Stalling for time.
Camilla won a million sats a couple days ago. We could talk about that for a minute.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was great.
Nice.
Honestly, it couldn't have gone better. I was invited on Bitcoin Twitch from Bitcoin Magazine. I was kind of like their guinea pig because I wanted to see if they could do deal or no deal. And so I got on the show. I had never played Deal or No Deal in my life or had never watched the show, but they guided me through it. So the premise of it is that from the beginning, I have to pick a suitcase. All of them are numbered from 1 to 26. So of course, I picked number 21. And at the very end, until the very end, I had the choice to swap out my suitcase. And I told them, I was like, nope, I'm going to stick with 21. And in the 21 suitcase were the 1 million sats.
Yeah.
Everyone
rigged.
I mean, of course it was 21, right? Everyone thought it was rigged. But they're like, no, this is a system that we use that's on the web, and we just set up the game, and it just happened to be case 21, which is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. It was really cool.
We need to see more Bitcoin games like that. All right, so the video is ready. I'm going to play it. I'm going to do full screen for everybody, and then we'll discuss. And hopefully Alex will join right when it's over. Oh, sorry, 1 second. And away we go.
Bitcoin has won over some of America's best-known billionaires, and institutions worldwide are treating it as a serious financial asset. But price is only one part of the story. Whether they know it or not, people who buy Bitcoin are strengthening a tool for protecting human rights. This still relatively new form of electronic money is censorship-resistant, seizure-resistant, borderless, permissionless, pseudonymous, programmable, and peer-to-peer. In Bitcoin, transactions don't go through banks or financial intermediaries. They travel directly from one person to another. Payment processing is done not by a regulated company like Visa or MasterCard, but by a decentralized global software network. Storage is handled not by a bank, but by the users themselves. Bitcoin issuance isn't determined by central bankers. The currency's creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, set it to have an ultimate limit of 21 million. No one can ever print more. Bitcoin transactions can't be stopped, and you don't need to reveal your name or address or telephone number to participate. You just need internet access. In 2017, the economist Paul Krugman described Bitcoin as some fancy technological thing that nobody really understands. There's been no demonstration yet that it actually is helpful in conducting economic transactions. There's no anchor for its value. Krugman lives in a sheltered environment in a liberal democracy with constitutional protections. His native currency is globally dominant and relatively stable. It's easy for him to open a bank account, to use a mobile app, to pay bills. or to grow his wealth by investing in real estate or stocks. But most people don't have the same privilege. 4.2 billion live under authoritarian regimes that use money as a tool for surveillance and state control. Their currency is often debased, and they are for the most part cut off from the international system that Krugman enjoys. For them, saving and transacting outside the government's purview isn't shady business, it's a way to preserve their freedoms. In China, if you type or utter one wrong word, the Communist Party might eliminate your financial services. This devastating outcome creates a chilling effect for dissidents and creative minds who are forced to use the country's increasingly centralized digital economy. In Hong Kong or Russia, donors to human rights organizations can get their bank accounts suspended and funds seized. Over the past few months in Belarus and Nigeria, nationwide protests have broken out against tyranny and corruption. In both places, activists raising money to support the democracy movement have had their bank accounts frozen. And as we saw in Burma just a few days ago, the military shut down the banking system during their latest coup and turned off the ATMs. For activists living under state repression, Bitcoin provides a way to preserve their money in cyberspace, locked away by encryption, safe from devaluation, in a network that has never been hacked. For them, it's digital cash and digital gold rolled into one. And in Cuba, Nigeria, China, Pakistan, Venezuela, Russia, Turkey, Argentina, Palestine, Zimbabwe, and elsewhere, Bitcoin is catching on and helping people escape tyranny and currency collapse. In the past few months, Belarusian activists have used Bitcoin to defy the regime by sending more than $3 million of unstoppable money directly to striking workers, who then convert it locally to rubles in peer-to-peer marketplaces to feed their families as they protest the country's dictatorship. In October, a feminist coalition in Nigeria raised the equivalent of tens of thousands of dollars in Bitcoin to buy gas masks and protest equipment as activist bank accounts were being turned on and off. In Russia, the politician and activist Alexei Navalny has raised millions in Bitcoin in opposition to Vladimir Putin, who has strict control over the traditional financial system. Putin can do a lot of things, but he can't freeze a Bitcoin account. In Iran and Palestine and Cuba, citizens are increasingly able to escape foreign restrictions on their financial rights, thanks to Bitcoin. In these places, individuals are dealing with sanctions or embargoes placed on them because of the misdeeds of their corrupt rulers. Bitcoin gives them a lifeline for earning income or receiving remittances from abroad. Some Venezuelans, having watched their country's currency evaporate due to hyperinflation, are converting their time and energy and family resources to Bitcoin's digital format and then escaping. With their savings secured by a password that can be stored on a flash drive, phone, or even memorized, they've started new lives in other countries, taking advantage of a technology that refugees throughout history could only dream about. The citizens of democracies also face financial controls, deplatforming, and an ever-expanding surveillance state. But those lucky enough to live in open societies can vote, sue, protest, and write, and those methods might allow them to protect their financial freedom and privacy. The billions who live under authoritarian governments don't have the same options. Unlike democracy, Bitcoin is universally available. You don't need to have a particular passport or bank card or voting status to use it. No government can turn off your Bitcoin if it's threatened by your ideas. We are in the middle of a great digital transformation, a time when cash, one of the last bastions of privacy and freedom, is disappearing. People are increasingly relying on easily surveilled apps like Apple Pay, Alipay, and perhaps soon central bank digital currencies as their primary medium of exchange. Bitcoin provides an alternative to our increasingly centralized financial system. It gives any activist or journalist a way to raise funds without censorship, a way to save despite the corrosive impact of excessive money printing, and a way to teleport value without permission. Bitcoin wasn't as powerful 5 years ago, before it had global liquidity. But today, exchanges have popped up in every region. Daily trading volume exceeds that of popular stocks like Apple, and peer-to-peer marketplaces like Paxful and Local Bitcoins have extended their reach, enabling users to sell Bitcoin for local currency almost anywhere in the world. Maybe you don't need Bitcoin, and maybe you don't understand Bitcoin, and maybe PayPal, Venmo, or your bank account serve your needs just fine. But don't write off Bitcoin as simply a vehicle for financial speculation. For millions of people around the world, it's an escape hatch from tyranny, and nothing less than freedom money.
Woo.
Wow. That's incredible.
Love it. And,
Yeah, it's amazing.
Sheesh. How do you follow that?
Exactly.
I figured we wouldn't be able to say too much, which is why we have Alex Gladstein here.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for joining us, Alex. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us, and this video is really incredible. So thank you for all you do. How are you doing today?
Good. Can you guys see me okay and hear me?
Yep.
Okay. You're a little laggy for me, so as long as you can hear me, that's all good. Happy to be here. I've been working on this for a couple months, actually. magazine Reason reached out to me at the beginning of December, and they wanted to do something like this. And I had done a thread with a really prominent financial journalist named Felix Salmon, he's huge heavyweight in the financial journalism space. And he was basically like, hey, Bitcoin's not, doesn't do anything. And I was like, yeah, actually it does. And I did this huge thread on why it's making a difference around the world with like very specific examples from different countries. And they got in touch and said, do you want to sort of turn this into a video? And I was like, yes. So they have this new series where they're creating like a short animated clips explaining important things. So I was thrilled that they wanted to do something about Bitcoin. So I wrote the script and did the voiceover, and their team did all the awesome animations and the music. And yeah, I just love the vibes. It's very like cypherpunk, very like Stranger Things. It's cool. So I hope it helps people. I hope it's like something that you can give to somebody if they're like, I don't believe you. I don't think Bitcoin's helping anybody. I think it's just a scam or whatever. Just be like, take 5 minutes and watch this, and then shut the fuck up, basically. So that's hopefully the idea here, folks. And maybe it can be used. Hopefully, it can be used in universities and schools and high schools. Like, hopefully, teachers can show it, 5 minutes, and then have a discussion about it. Maybe it'll be used in some of your work, some of the other people on stage here. Maybe it can be used as food for thought for conversations in different communities. Because Bitcoin's not just an American thing. I think it very much is an American thing because it affects Americans dramatically. But it's a global thing. I mean, there's no capital of Bitcoin. Obviously, it's having just as much of a difference in Minsk or Lagos or Tokyo as it is in Los Angeles. So we're part of this global unstoppable phenomenon, and it's important that people who are well off and well connected understand this, because otherwise they are trapped in their bubble, their dollar democracy bubble. And it's not like you're guaranteed to be perfect if you live in the dollar democracy bubble. There are a lot of people who get screwed over, even of course in America and in Germany and in France. But like, at least those people have like different mechanisms for like getting their word out, and at least having a native currency that doesn't crash continuously. But for 87% of the world's population, for more than 7 billion people on this planet, they live in a country that is either straight up authoritarian, or a country that has bad currency, a weak currency. Not the yen, not the dollar, not the euro, not the Swiss franc, not the Australian dollar, not the Canadian dollar. They live, with the naira, the peso, the lira. These currencies lose 5-10%, over short periods of time, and that's just the official rate. In some of these countries, the real rate on the black market is like 30%, 40%, 50% inflation, sometimes per month in some of these countries. So people are watching all of their time and energy disappear. So for the first time, you can have a digital way to protect that, because, of course, people did it with gold or sheet metal or greenbacks, but those things can get damaged or easily stolen. So finally, they have something digital. And I think that's just so important that people understand that this is like this open source, permissionless savings technology. And if you look at what the Nigerian government is doing, they're doing what they did about a few years ago, where they're saying, if we find out that you're using Bitcoin, we're going to turn off your bank account. So they're not like banning Bitcoin, and there's ways around it. And those companies are going to thrive and survive, and they're going to figure out how to get around it. It's not going to stop Bitcoin. But I do think that like forcibly trying to stop your citizens from using a permissionless, peaceful currency, to stop them from making that choice, when you are trying to get them to use a currency that you are about to devalue. Literally, the Nigerian government is about to devalue its currency. I think that's a pretty straightforward human rights violation. I don't know what you guys think, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask about that because I just saw the news. I'm going to reach out to Bernard Parra, who we had on the show a little while ago, because I want to kind of get another perspective from on the ground about how this is actually going to affect people who are Bitcoiners. This news, but like you said, it's not going to stop Bitcoin in the end. So
no, none of it will. I'm working on a longer essay on all the different attacks on Bitcoin, and look, I think governments realize that attacking Bitcoin at the technical level or the protocol level or the infrastructure level is like not going to work. It's like a science fiction, scenario. You have all these people on the internet talking about how China's going to 51% attack Bitcoin or all this nonsense. Like that's not going to happen, but they will attack it from a regulatory perspective. So the question is, how effective is that going to be? And we have seen that be very ineffective, right? So you've seen the two largest governments in the world pass varying kinds of restrictions on what their citizens can do with Bitcoin. And in both cases, the population of people using Bitcoin and the usage of Bitcoin and the value of Bitcoin have skyrocketed after those restrictions. So, really the Indian government or the Chinese government, I mean, they can say whatever they want, but it's going to be very difficult to get, again, to force their citizens to not choose a currency that they can't debase. Like that's going to be very hard, especially in countries like India, where there's already been demonetization. And when there is no digital option, if all you have are these bills that you've saved, all your hard work has gone into saving these pieces of paper for your family so you can feed them and educate them, and that gets taken away from you, you get really angry. And then when someone informs you that there's another way of doing it that's digital and permissionless and very easy to hide and very hard to confiscate, and that you could earn it, and the key could conceivably be stored by your family in America, things get very interesting. So I think people are ready for this fight. It's going to be a fight, but I think the people are ready. I don't think they're going to take this sitting down. Whether it's in the streets of whatever, man, Chicago, Boston, or Jacksonville, or whether it's in Lagos or Mumbai. I don't think people are going to take it.
I think it's also, look, better to plan for the worst and hope for the best, but in the U.S., for instance, there are definitely some positive signs. Like we just saw that Cynthia Lummis was appointed to the Senate Banking Committee. So it'll be interesting to see how different countries kind of handle this. But in the U.S., I'm hopeful that maybe things will turn out to be easier.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about the U.S. I mean, think of something like Signal. Signal is an open source encrypted chat app that has exploded in popularity after basically WhatsApp said it was sharing your information with Facebook, right? And after Elon Musk said use it and yada, yada, yada. Okay, so it's got
Snowden too, right?
Snowden's been telling people to use Signal for a long time.
But that's when I started using.
In the last month, it's gone from call it 20 million users to 80 million or whatever. They don't release their data, but we know it's been a ridiculous increase. And there's probably getting close to 100 million people who use this thing. Now, the guy who created it, Moxie Marlinspike, if he was Chinese or Russian, there'd be no Signal. He couldn't start a team and build out a legitimate organization. Signal's a foundation. It's not a profit business, right? But it exists in the United States. The U.S. government often will serve it with requests for data, which Signal says no. Or one time they said there was one time that they revealed that they gave some data, but all they had was the date that an account was created and the date when it was last accessed. They don't have your chat, so they can't give anything away. But think about it like this: that amazing technology that benefits people in India and in Russia and all over the place was developed in America because we have property rights and free expression, and we have a constitution, we have a Bill of Rights. So same thing with Bitcoin. Cynthia Lummis is going to cause a lot of problems for people that want to be overly restrictive on Bitcoin at the Senate level. Then the new SEC guy, he taught a class on Bitcoin. Highly doubt he's going to want to ban it or whatever. This isn't Steve Mnuchin, right? So there's all kinds of even obstacles to regulatory restrictions, and they're going to come mainly in the form of more KYC, which is important because we all need to understand how to buy and sell and exchange Bitcoin without KYC. That's something we all should do better at and learn more about. But it would be a mistake to not acknowledge that there's not just policy, sort of momentum against Bitcoin regulation in this country, but also enormous private sector restrictions and momentum. You have all these huge companies like Coinbase is about to IPO, a $75 billion IPO. They hire lobbyists and lawyers, and there's a competition of ideas here. And there's a huge amount of private interest in the corporate sector that is going to fight any sort of regulation tooth and nail, So I think we have to appreciate that too. So basically the stuff that the contributions that Americans can make to Bitcoin in different ways will benefit everybody else. It's been the same since the crypto wars of the 90s. A lot of Americans made very important contributions, whether it was Whit Diffie or others like Phil Zimmerman over the years, that created technology that allowed any human being to communicate privately with one another. We can also take the lead on that. And obviously a lot of important Bitcoin core developers and thinkers have been American, and we can continue to leave that legacy. And that's, I think, a legacy we can be proud of, alongside, the nonsense with our prison system and our wars and all that stuff. I think we can be proud of the legacy we've made on Bitcoin so far.
Fuck yeah, man. Zay, I know you like to talk about Bitcoin enabling freedom. I'd love to hear you sort of wax on this subject for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. So, in America, we have a historical precedent for our economy being controlled by, of course, the Federal Reserve, the central banking system. And one of the things about freedom is that you can't have it without a free money system. Every type of initiative that's ever been started to try and get some semblance of freedom from any community has sort of been stifled by the economic repression. So as far as freedom goes, of course, we all love Bitcoin. We know that it is something that can free us as far as a reserve currency, a savings technology. It's permissionless, unconfiscatable. All those things are great. But as far as freedom, we should also use that as basically as a jumping off point to other things as well. I want to encourage people, make sure you have your own keys. You should learn other skills as well, like growing your own food, having protection with gun rights and things of that nature. And freedom is not just your money, but that is the root. And if you start there, it starts to open up other things. I think a lot of Bitcoiners agree. Once you get into Bitcoin, you go down that rabbit hole, all of these things become apparent. And the freedom that you get from that, you sort of center your life around it. So I've definitely done the work over the years to do that. And I love to hear what other people have done as well.
Yeah, I mean, particularly for the Black community, it's like the control of money is a white thing, and it has been for since the beginning and still is. And so, I mean, the Black community has suffered a lot because of that control, all the way from just obviously the money printing centralized at the top, all the way down to, banks refusing loans, refusing housing in certain parts of cities, etc., called redlining. So it's got a special, Bitcoin has a special significance in terms of freedom for a lot of communities that aren't white men, especially here in the United States. So what is it? I mean, does it mean something more to you is it a pathway that you see forward to a more just world?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Bitcoin is the best form of peaceful protest. You can be the laziest person ever. If you just move your money into Bitcoin, that's literally the best protest you can do. And I think that going forward into the future, the Black community needs leverage, because everything that runs in the fiat system is built off the money that they can make. So, for example, if you're in the fiat system, the money you make, you get taxed on it. It goes, back to the banking system, which funds the politicians, which passes the laws that are oppressing you. So you're funding your own oppression if you keep using fiat. And in the Black community, if we move to Bitcoin, we have the leverage to get the things done that we want. Because again, we're all adults here. If you want something done politically, you need money. You need lobbyists. It's not some voting game and write a letter to them. That's not going to change shit. You need money. You need actual small businesses that can, develop over time so that you have the leverage to get things done in your local community and federally. So yeah, I think the Black community and Bitcoin, perfect marriage. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm glad other people are catching on as well, because it's for everybody, but we need everybody to be mainstream.
It's also like a story that transcends borders. I mean, if you look at every country, there are minorities that are systematically discriminated against, whether it's the Muslims in Burma, the Muslims in China. You have different people who speak different languages who are just discriminated against. A lot of people don't realize this, but in places like Cameroon, your language determines, what kind of rights you have, whether you speak French or English, for example. It's not really an ethnic difference. It's a linguistic difference. And there's different, communities that are persecuted for being Christian, like in Egypt, or like for being, Muslim in different countries. So depending on your identity, your religion, depending where you are around the world, there are groups that are systematically discriminated against, and financial discrimination has always been a huge part of that, even though it's not usually part of the story that you read. These people typically, as Isaiah has been saying, have fewer rights, fewer opportunities. They are literally treated differently in terms of protocols by the private sector and by the government. And this is just our way of saying, like, screw that. Like, everybody's equal. It doesn't matter whether you're a billionaire or a refugee. This network will treat you the same. No one can take your money. No one can print more. No one can stop you from using it. Now, it doesn't guarantee any sort of like UBI or quality of outcome. It doesn't do that. Nothing ever does that. Anyone who says they can do that is lying to you. But it does provide equality of opportunity in a real way. And that's what's very exciting about it, I think, from like a moral perspective.
For me, I like the opportunity to use Bitcoin as a mechanism for developing collective economics. I am big on group economics. There are a lot of injustices in this world. We are all aware of them. But I totally believe that through collective economics, we can resolve a lot of those issues. When people have an economic base, they have a foundation to build a political base. They have a foundation to build an employment base. And for me, it all starts with an economy. So when I look at Bitcoin, I see the opportunity to crowdfund, to pool funds together, to buy back depressed areas and neighborhoods, to build back the block, to own the block, to own those corner stores and bodegas in your neighborhood that are owned by other folks, and put stores in there that employ people in the neighborhood, that get people off of social services. So that's just my take on it.
Isaiah, the way you phrased it before, that if you're using fiat, you're enabling your own oppression. I'd heard like variations on that, but I'd never heard it put that way, and that's like it's a mind-blowing way to think about it. It's
yeah, and I think once you start to get people thinking in that fashion, they start to realize that the things to them that are regular, it's like, yeah, we have been funding our oppression. We've tried. We've gotten real estate. We've had a black president. We've had politicians. We have lawyers, doctors, people working in the tech sector. We tried everything. So why is it not working? Because fundamentally, the money you're using is not going to allow you to ascend to a level you want to get to. You have built-in inflation, we have built-in discrimination, and all of that has to change before you can get to that next level. And Bitcoin literally rewards you for your work over time, and you are valued with the amount of work that you put in. All you need is equal opportunity. Nobody wants a handout. You just want the same opportunity, and Bitcoin affords that, not our past system. So it should be pretty easy for the Black community to move on. However, I think a few factors have to be worked out, maybe Stockholm syndrome, a few other things with how government works to try and get Black people to rely on them. Once those things are in the past, Bitcoin will be very easy to use.
There's also, you're going to say something?
No, go for it.
Yeah.
There's also this issue of like the establishment doesn't understand Bitcoin or doesn't like it. So that's actually an advantage, because it means that we who know about it can get involved and tell our communities and tell activists and tell journalists about it before they, realize what they need to be doing. And it's just a huge advantage that will only come around once in our lifetime, where we have this like prohibitive edge on everyone else in this adoption cycle, because we have open minds and they don't. And that's really what it comes down to. So, we have these couple of years here, probably, the window's closing before everybody's going to have to realize how inevitable this thing is and how it's just going to start becoming a bigger part of everybody's life. But, look, you earned it. You learned about it. Use your knowledge, spread it to the people you care about, the causes you care about, the communities you care about, and watch it benefit later. I think this is very important to acknowledge. And doubt is such a powerful thing. I mean, you actually have, financial journalists joking about how, the halving, was priced in. Of course it wasn't priced in. But it's easy to say that at the time when they're looking at it and they're like, oh, well, how could it possibly be priced in? Everybody knows. Just because you know or you heard doesn't mean you believe. So they watched this thing, and of course the halving's not priced in. I mean, quite obviously. Now look at the prices now before the as opposed to before this halving, the previous halving, the previous halving. And what do you think is going to happen on the next halving? You're going to have the same people who, hey, maybe it could go up, but they don't believe it. So we have doubt is a very powerful force. So, we are beyond doubt. So now that we know, use that power. I think it's very important.
Camilla, Aulani, I know both of you are a bit newer to the Bitcoin space. I'd love to hear your perspectives on this, particularly around, when you first got into Bitcoin, did you even think about these aspects of Bitcoin? And maybe how long did it take for you to realize that Bitcoin was more than just, a different type of money kind of thing?
Go ahead.
You can go ahead, Aulani.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, I started a financial journey, I call it. Probably about almost 2-3 years ago, we invested in some property, and it just changed it and shifted the way my husband and I thought about everything. And so before Bitcoin came into our lives, it was all about finding cash flow, trying to find that freedom of time, because we value time so much. Like, we've learned so much about valuing time. And so having that freedom, so looking for cash flow investments, whatnot. So we're on that journey, and the whole financial education, the terms, the words, everything I was so new to, even though it's been around. But as I was on that journey, I started learning about how messed up our system is, local, in the United States, but also all around. And then Bitcoin came into our lives, and I thought, okay, yeah, like digital gold, cool, we'll just invest in it here and there. But as I had to start learning about it, and it has changed everything from what I was learning before. It ties in to everything, but it's a need to go even deeper and further. And then to Alex's video and his points, and Isaiah's as well, is it started when I realized it's globally, it's a global currency, that there's value in other countries. That was a huge sign for me that it's not just a local thing or an American thing. This is globally, and that people are struggling, and that in the midst of their struggle, they are depending on, this type of currency, Bitcoin, to get out of their situation, or to, all of the different things I'm learning. So that's why that video, actually, when I was watching it, I kind of started tearing up, because I actually think once I started realizing it's globally, I really wanted to learn more about it, and then learn more about where we are at in America, where we're not, they're not being quiet anymore. They want justice. We're learning about history that we were never taught about. To even Isaiah's point with some of the, in the Black community, about just restrictions and things that were taken. I didn't know that. I can't say everyone didn't know that. So all these things are surfacing up, and then you have Bitcoin that just makes sense to bring everything together. I mean, look at, we say like Bitcoin was started, and we don't know, is it he, she, they, them? There's no restriction of who even started this foundation of, where we're going and what we're doing. So that's kind of my take. But a big turn on for me, if you will, is the global aspect of it. That even if America or whatever doesn't take this as the ultimate currency, I know that there are people around the world, there are valuable people that are meeting in this community, that we value it. So we will always go, hey, I'll exchange this for Bitcoin. Oh, I have this skill, I'll exchange it for this or that. Even that alone, to me, makes me feel very confident and excited about Bitcoin, because there's value in it. So
that's very well said. I also was interested in hearing what you all have to say about this topic of like human rights and currency or money, because generally speaking, as someone who spends their time in the human rights field, I think that like money has been stripped out of the narrative for some reason, and I'm not sure if that's the case also, Isaiah, in terms of so much civil rights movement. But like globally
Yes.
speaking, the human rights activists never talk about money. They always have money problems. Like if I'm trying to wire money to somebody in a country, there's always worries that their bank account will be frozen, and they're always worried about money, but they never like include it in their narrative. And I remember so vividly, I invited a guy, a dear friend and an amazing hero. His name's Ivan Mwire from Zimbabwe. He's like the pastor who started this movement that ended up bringing down Mugabe. And I invited him to speak about hyperinflation in the here in the United States. I brought him to San Francisco. We did an event on it. And he's like, no one's ever asked me to speak about this. And I'm like, really? That's kind of weird. Isn't that like such an important part of your story and how the dictator ruined your country? And he's like, yes. But then he gets up on stage and he does something remarkable. He pulls out this necklace from under his shirt and he says, we all wear this in the opposition movement. And it's actually the 1980 Zimbabwean dollar, which used to be worth $2. And he says, we use it as a reminder of what our economy used to be and what was taken from us. And I thought that was so freaking powerful. And, such a reminder that money it should be part of the human rights conversation. But, Isaiah, it's not, right?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, one of the problems I had with the Black Lives Matter movement recently was that if you look at their website, there is no economic plan. It's like, what are we talking about? If you look at some of the other movements, it's always social. It's always this, it's always that. There's nothing economic. And I'm like, well, what is the basis of your, or what is the foundation of the solution? And most of it is just anger. Like, it's not really, it's not really anything substantial. It's like, it doesn't start with money. You're not really changing anything. You're just lashing out, or you can do these things. But socially, if you look at the data and the statistics, nothing has changed because financial literacy or something financial has not been a part of it. So I'm with you there, Alex. I mean, I just don't see it. And this is why I think Bitcoin is important, because it's inevitably tied together. It's both a form of protest and also money. So,
well, maybe we can work together to get Amnesty International to start talking about Bitcoin. They've never mentioned it, and isn't that it's kind of crazy, right? I mean,
I'm with you. Let's do it. Hey,
yeah, that would be a big deal, man. That would be a big win for sure. It's Alex you're flying this flag, man, of Bitcoin for freedom and that narrative, and I think it's incredibly important and not talked about enough, especially abroad. I mean, we have the kind of insulated here in the United States, maybe in Europe as well, like trying to watch number go up. We have this, global reserve currency here, sort of giving us this bubble of, just unreality, excuse me.
Yeah, but even in America, I mean, it's almost like, again, this is so truly global. It doesn't matter where you are. It's important. I mean, I actually, because I'm in these debates often, and then the person tries to corner you and say, oh, so this is only important for people like in this woman today on Twitter, this economist said Bitcoin's only for people who live in basket case economies. First of all, that's like a really bigoted thing to say. It's a very arrogant thing to say. It's a very sheltered thing to say. If you want to call it, I'm assuming she's referring to people who live under currencies that devaluate rapidly. Yeah, that's a majority of the world's population, first of all. So for her to say that is outrageous. Second of all, it's not like it doesn't matter for people who live in democracies. This is a big point and very important to make, because people in democracies are not the same, as Isaiah is making this eloquent point. People are systematically discriminated against in democracies, whether they are gypsies in Europe or the African-American community in the United States, or the indigenous community in Taiwan. I can point any or the indigenous community in Norway. Give me any democracy. And yes, of course, they're better than dictatorships as a whole. But there's absolutely discrimination and financial discrimination in those countries as well. So let's not pretend that this is not important for everybody. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. You're right. I'm just saying like relative, right? Oh, I wasn't saying you. I was saying this is what happens when you start debating people who are Bitcoin critics, professionally, and you're explaining that it's so valuable for people who live under bad currencies, and they're like, oh, well, was that what you're saying? Or it's only so it can't be valuable for us. And I'm like, no. It can definitely be valuable for everybody. Yeah, I mean, we're all living under, even United States included, living under this sort of payments panopticon that's increasingly invasive on our privacy, and that is not talked about enough either. I was we're all kind of hyped up on Michael Saylor bullishness and corporate adoption of Bitcoin, because we know it's going to kind of drive price up or whatever, which is great. Number go up is good, in general, for Bitcoin adoption.
But these guys who are adopting it are only looking at it as a store of value. And Saylor himself has even said that we need to play nice with the regulators. This thing is really just a store of value. It's not necessarily like we shouldn't be like harping about privacy and pushing back against regulators. He sort of softened that up a little bit last week on a podcast with Laura Shin, but I've been harping on him on Twitter for a while. I don't even know if he's seeing it because he hasn't responded, but it's like, it's important, I think, for these rich dudes who are coming in and stacking, massive amounts of Bitcoin to understand that this is not just about preserving your wealth over time, which is important, but this is about privacy. It's about freedom.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, what can they really do? They can really only help Bitcoin. If someone like him or someone else in the corporate sector wants to change Bitcoin to make it less private or less pseudonymous or less controllable or whatever, they're going to fail. I mean, that's what we learned in the scaling wars. I mean, you had megacorps and Chinese billionaires try to change Bitcoin and they got wrecked. So I don't think that these new corporate entrants are going to do anything but drive the price up. I mean, that's it. I mean, they want to, they want to buy Bitcoin. Please go ahead. You're more than welcome. If it's out there, you want to buy it. But buying Bitcoin does not mean you control Bitcoin. That's an extremely important point to understand. We don't have whales in Bitcoin. A whale, we have people who own a lot of Bitcoin, but they have no more control over the network than anyone else. And that's a very, very important thing to understand and makes it so radically different from our existing financial system. Where like the people who control the financial system now, they can just print money and you can't do that in Bitcoin.
Exactly. And the only thing that whales could possibly do is tank the price temporarily or run up the price temporarily. It's just, it's USD price and that's all they can really have control over. But yeah, we have democratic control. Like what Satoshi did was to democratize final settlement, which is the real revolution in my mind, right? Because that's been the province of central banks, the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF doing it internationally. And that's all been extremely centralized, but now all of us can run a node and verify that our transactions have settled finally settled. We're holding the money, the base currency comes into our wallets and it is ours. That has never been done in the history of humanity, even with gold. Like gold has always been at least somewhat centralized. So yeah, it's a revolution.
Let me ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No.
When did this narrative of store of value come to be? Because when I got into Bitcoin was money.
It was currency.
Right. I mined it to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere between like 2016 and the beginning of 2018, this narrative about a store of value began to really take off. And maybe I don't know enough about Bitcoin, but for me, it is always peer-to-peer electronic cash. It's meant to be spent. It's in the white paper. And so I really struggle to understand why this source of value narrative is as big as it is now. Mm-hmm. If we can't spend it, right, we can't lift other people up. If you are a business who's willing to accept it and the narrative is don't spend it, hodl, how can we help that business owner to acquire Bitcoin to buy, to purchase goods and services? I don't understand this narrative at all.
Hey, Dante, I think it can be both. Like let's say you're a small business owner in the US, for example. If you're not saving your profits in Bitcoin, you're losing your purchasing power over time. So that's one thing. But it doesn't. I spend Bitcoin when I can. With people who accept it. I think we should encourage both ends of these things. And I think it's also important to realize, that Bitcoin is different things for different people, and that's totally okay. For someone whose transactions aren't being censored, for them it can be a store of value, and that's fine. But for someone living in another country where that might not be the case, for them it's something totally different, and that's okay too. People are using, I'm not an expert on this, but, people are using Bitcoin for remittances and, and it's working great in some countries, and maybe they're spending it as soon as they get it. But
so
I was, oh, you got it.
I just, Dante, if I could just respond. I mean, I think a lot of this comes from our interest in being like Bayesian or like, we're looking at evidence as it comes by. We're changing our minds as we see things happen. So it's true that there's different narratives in Bitcoin's history. But over the last 5 years, it's undeniable that like what people have really used Bitcoin for is as a savings technology around the world. And when I interview people in different countries, different places, they really use it as like a savings account, and then they spend it when they need to. But it stores the value and it allows them to protect their purchasing power against government debasement. But what someone said just now is true. It can be both, which is like the craziest thing, because you can't spend gold really. Gold is just a savings instrument. It's not really a means of exchange. And fiat money is just a means of exchange. You can save in it, but for most people, they lose that value really quickly because most people don't live in the United States and they have a terrible local currency. But Bitcoin can be both. It's just that the fees in Bitcoin are going to get very expensive in the next few years, and you won't be able to really, spend, Bitcoin to buy coffee. It won't make any sense. So that's why there's these like second layer technologies like Lightning coming about that hopefully will preserve our ability to spend Bitcoin like cash when we want to. But that main chain is really turning into a settlement network because the fees are going to get very expensive, and it's going to be basically something you're only going to want to do when you really need that like final secure settlement. But really, what we're watching is this thing turn into something that batches many, many, many different transactions into each main chain transaction. And that's how we're going to scale this thing to 3, 4, 5 billion people. And it's pretty exciting, to be honest, I think.
See, I want to push back on that just a little bit. I don't think that the fees have to go as high as people think they will go. If we offer the value proposition of mining Bitcoin in addition to hodling Bitcoin. The reason the fees are high is because the mempool is full and people have to pay more to clear out their transactions. So if we offer people this solution, hey, look, yes, you can store your value, you can hodl, that's all good. You can spend it. Yeah, that's all good. Why don't you go out and mine? Let's build some tech that people can mine on their phone.
But Dante, unfortunately, like more miners is not going to increase the number of transactions that can go into each block because that's limited by the block size. So this was what the big debate was about in 2017 when Bcash was born and then BSV subsequently after that. They wanted to increase the block size to increase the number of transactions that could be in the base layer because the fees were getting too high. Mm-hmm. And the users were like, no, this is a fundamental change. We need to prioritize the decentralization of Bitcoin because what's ultimately important is that making the ability to verify the chain and your money a priority. That's got to be the number one priority of Bitcoin. That's what the users were saying in 2017.
21 million.
Bitcoin Cash forked off and said, no, we're going to increase the block size because this is about money. This is about spending. This is about a medium of exchange. The thing is, like, there's this monetization process, and we start out as sort of this curious collectible. When things are a curious collectible, you'll trade it back and forth like a baseball card or a basketball card. You'll trade them back and forth for other cards, Pokemon cards, shit like that. And that's how it started out. And then the next step in the monetary process, the monetization process, is a store of value. That's where we are now. The step after this is a medium of exchange. And the reason we're in the store of value now is because there's so much upside that most of us Bitcoiners see in terms of the purchasing power of Bitcoin that we don't really want to sell it. But after time goes by and price goes up in terms of US dollar purchasing power, everyone's going to be like, okay, like I don't see so much upside in purchasing power anymore. I'm willing to part with this to buy a house, a car, some services, some groceries, etc. So then it becomes a medium of exchange. And that's sort of the process that we've noticed through history that new monies go through. So we're sort of in this like spot right now,
Brady, I gotta run, but I want to add one piece just for food for thought to piggyback off what you just said. At the end of the day, the people who used Bitcoin realized that if we keep making the block size bigger, if we keep making it bigger, then the only people who can hold the Bitcoin ledger are data centers, corporations. You know, today anybody can cheaply run and verify the entire history of Bitcoin at home with a couple $100 or even less of equipment. Like I do mine on a Raspberry Pi. Anybody can do this. And that's so important. No other crypto network or no other instrument of any kind of money has that feature. And that's Bitcoin, the ability of anybody to verify that there's only so many coins in existence. And that's what makes us different from fiat currencies, which can be printed behind closed doors and then your savings can get devalued. Now with that, there are implications, and I'll just leave this one out there. Someone mentioned this in the comments, but you know, Gresham's law is this like economic law that you know, maybe isn't accurate over time, but for now seems reasonable, and says that, you know, bad money drives out the good. So this comes from like the days of kings when they used to coin clip. So kings had like, you know, 1 ounce of silver for a pound or whatever. And then they would clip and they would take out the silver and shove in copper to steal from the people. So the people would see that and they would hoard the full silver coins, and they would use the ones that had half copper. They were like, whatever, these are less worthwhile. So that's gonna happen here. Like people are gonna realize over the next decade that like, unless I really have to spend my Bitcoin, I'm gonna save it, and I'd rather spend the government money that is increasingly worthless. So I'll go and buy like groceries with the government money, and I'm gonna save the Bitcoin. Now that's I think a general trend you're gonna see until we get to the future where there's this other law called Thier's law, which is the opposite, which is when eventually the merchants are like, screw the government money. I'm only accepting Bitcoin. I'm only accepting Bitcoin. Now that may not happen gradually then suddenly. It may happen sooner than we think. There's already merchants who are like giving you a discount for giving you Bitcoin. Like I run a fantasy football league and I'm telling the people in my league to freaking pay me in Bitcoin to give them a 10% discount. So maybe that's happening sooner than we think. But like, you know, it is a powerful force. But, you know, I do believe in Lightning as it's so important because like from a civil liberties and privacy perspective, when I buy something at the store, I don't want like some massive amount of organizations and governments to know what I'm doing. That allows them to predict my behavior and socially engineer me. So we do need Bitcoin to be digital cash. So I do think Lightning is very important for small purchases. But these are two very different forces that are at stake here. And this is an awesome conversation. And I think, you know, Dante, your points are extremely important and we need to just continue to back and forth on this one. But this is awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me on, and we'll come back soon.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Alex.
Yeah, spread the video far and wide. Take care.
Yeah.
Later.
I think to summarize all this, it's like what they said in the conference. We're just in chapter 1 of Bitcoin. You know, this is chapter 1 where we see it as a store of value. And we're going to be entering chapter 2 where it's going to be more massively adopted. And that's where we're going to see more people interacting with just Bitcoin. And like Alex said, not wanting to use that fiat money. So we're still very early.
We are. Before we move on today, if anyone is thinking about signing up for Swan and you want to support the Human Rights Foundation, we actually have a link where you can do that. It's swanbitcoin.com/HRF. And all the referral fees for that will be going to the Human Rights Foundation. So please feel free to share that far and wide as well.
In case you didn't know, Alex Gladstein, who was just left, is the Chief Strategy Officer of the Human Rights Foundation. And that's the reason why we set up. My wife is making funny faces at me. This is the reason why we set up that referral link.
That's the reason why we did the referral link, so your wife could make funny faces at you. I'm so confused.
I support you, Brady. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, Dante, can we throw like one more level to what Alex said at the end, where he was saying merchants are only going to accept Bitcoin? If you read Jeff Booth's The Price of Tomorrow, what I think is going to happen is merchants are going to say, we only accept Bitcoin. And then people that hold Bitcoin are going to say, well, I'm only going to buy it at a discount, but it's going to have to be a big discount because we are seeing Bitcoin increase every halvening. So then the price of goods will lower. And that's when you'll start to see the human rights aspect where regular everyday people can afford more things paying in Satoshis using Lightning Network. That's where I see Bitcoin maybe in 10, 15 years. That's basically the peer-to-peer cash vision, but you have to go through steps. We just need more time. So that vision is still there because by myself, I bought a $900 burrito from 2016. I'm with you, brother.
There's a story.
I've spent Bitcoin. I've given it away. I used to give away 0.1 Bitcoin when it was like $20 to so many people, and most of them lost it. So trust me, I've spent it, used it, paying it forward. But I think the peer-to-peer cash vision is going to take time, but we're going to get there. I think all these scenarios are going to bounce off each other to a point where it's like, oh, I'm only paying 1,000 Satoshis or 10,000 Satoshis for a car, which 10,000 Satoshis today is what? I don't know, $30. So price of goods is going to lower. It's going to have to. Technology eats everything.
There's also
and I think to your point, Isaiah, but also Dante, to your question, it's a great question because I wondered that as well. Again, I consider myself newer, but how I compute things, like just the other day, I mentioned to my husband, I'm like, so, we'll invest in here in Bitcoin, and then as Bitcoin evolves, then we'll blah, blah, blah. I woke up the other morning, I think it was actually yesterday morning, and I realized that Bitcoin isn't evolving. Bitcoin is. We as people, as humans, we're evolving. And so I think in my financial journey that I mentioned earlier, before Bitcoin came into my life, even though my husband and I didn't have just all this money that we can invest in this and buy that, we started educating ourselves to position ourselves to be ready when that time comes to make some moves. Because you can't make the moves off of a whim, off of somebody going, hey, invest in this, do that. You have to understand and know, I as you study Bitcoin, they always take you back to what is money. So understanding that. So to your point, Dante, I think it's absolutely legit what you're saying, but I think too, the community that you reach out and that you touch, it's about really encouraging them to educate themselves about Bitcoin now, educating themselves about a wallet. I know I need to learn more about a wallet. I bought one and I'm about to return it because we haven't opened it, because I'm learning more things of how I want to hold that, how to hold that. And I think and also starting by stacking sats, having them do $25 a week, having them do little things until we know what to do with it. And I think there will definitely be that exchange, but I think this season and this moment and this time, this right now, is really about educating ourselves. Hey,
stacking swans,
stacking sats, and having people, the community, really understand where is it going, because I think great creative, awesome people that have maybe feel like myself, I feel like, oh, well, I'm not this or I'm not that. You don't have to be. You don't have to be any of that. But do you want to play a role in the future? Do you want to have a say-so in future? Yes. And I'll be able to, because bitch owns some Bitcoin. No. So I think the question is so legit, but I think it's all about timing. But right now, I think it's about positioning to be a part of it before it gets to the point where it's a lot of money, or it might be harder to stack sats or whatever. I don't know the full future.
So one thing,
real quick, Brecky, I think a new meme was born. Bitch owns some Bitcoin. Let's get that out on Twitter. Let's get that out on Twitter.
So one thing I want to tack onto that, Aulani, is that, if you're learning now and you're getting in on it now, I do think you will be better positioned than most, but to me, like, one of the real promises of Bitcoin is not that, it's going to help us get rich, you should get in now, but, yeah, that might happen. But to me, it's, imagine a future where we do have this circular Bitcoin economy and people are saving it in Bitcoin and spending Bitcoin. At that point, it doesn't matter how much Bitcoin you have. It matters that you're able to save in a currency that can't be inflated away, that can't be messed with. That is, equal opportunity for all, for real.
Yeah. So true.
So that's why, like, when people, are saying, oh, I'm too late, or, oh, there's whale, it doesn't matter.
Bitcoin party.
What's that?
Yeah.
You're never late to the Bitcoin party. Even Elon said it. He's like, oh, I'm late to the party. And it's like, no, you're not. No one is late to the Bitcoin party. If anything, we are super early right now. And us, as the people who are first starting to come in and learn about it, it's our job to educate. educate ourselves, educate our communities, because this is huge, and we want to be a part of history. We want to make history right. So
Hell yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, it's a really great time. I'm not a tech person. I don't know tech. I don't know half of the things sometimes what's being taught, spoken about on Clubhouse, but that doesn't stop me from listening, learning words, Googling it, doing whatever the terms. But you don't have to be a tech person. I'm more of a creative person. But we need that. We need the creative. We need the writers. We need the artists. We need all of those. So I think it's even a position and a time for people to go, I can't maybe do this in Bitcoin world, but how can I add to it? How can I, maybe if I drew something, I think a children's book, ABCs of Bitcoin would be, if I learned back in the days that if you can explain to a kindergarten, and at that time it was, I was really involved in the Christian world. If you can explain to them the basics in 101 and ABCs of Christianity, then you can explain it to anybody. And I feel like, we need artists, people who write, direct, all of these things. So I think the community is, people are hungry for it, and that they, we are in a phase right now that there's a lot of technical things that need to be discussed, talked about. I'm lost most of the time, but I am here writing, and so just being in a room where people know more than me of things I definitely don't know. I think that's a smart move for all of us.
Man, Aulani, just the fervor with which you came out, and like, I'm in, let me learn, and you're just trying to soak this all up from the very beginning. Like, you reached out to us at Swan, you got on board. We talked several times on Zoom calls and got to know each other, and like it's awesome to see. And you still got that passion, and like I remember that. I mean, I still have it too, but I remember that like early flame, and that's really inspiring.
Well, it's crazy because remember we used to, before Swan Lounge, we used to meet every Friday.
I know, yeah. Now we have Clubhouse. I was emailing with Seth the other day because we had these little private meetups every Friday, and Seth kept hitting me up. He's like, we got to start that back up again. I'm like, yeah, we do for sure. But then Clubhouse happened. I'm like, this is what we were looking for.
I saw Seth up there. I was like, hey.
Yeah. So speaking of Clubhouse, Dante, Isaiah, you guys got a big club there going, Black Bitcoin Billionaires. It's really successful. It's growing really, really big. You guys got rooms running there every day. Big Mar up in there, Naja Roberts. Like, I've met some people who I've been learning from. And it's just a cool platform because it's genuine, and it's people that you don't see in the echo chamber of Twitter a lot, so I think it's cool. You want to talk about Black Bitcoin Billionaires for a minute?
Also, sorry, I was going to say real quick, just note, you don't have to be Black or a billionaire to be a member.
True.
I'm neither.
I was going to lead off with that. So yeah, thank you for saying that, because definitely a lot of people see that name, but really, it's for everybody, but the target is for our community. But the good thing is Bitcoin information needs to be correct. And we have a lot of people who have been in the space since, 2011 to 2012, just like Brady said, not big in that Twitter echo chamber. So it's good to hear other perspectives, people who have done things in the space you may or may not know about, and to learn from them because they all have different takes as well. So we are one of the biggest groups on Clubhouse. We do events pretty much every day, 2 or 3 times a day. We do Who Wants to Be a Satoshi Millionaire Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have the Genesis block on Mondays, a lot of good shows. And this month, we call it Black Future Month. We're giving away $100,000 worth of Bitcoin to anybody who joins on blackbitcoinbillionaire.com. We've partnered, we're giving away this money to anybody who wants to stack 1 million Satoshis in a month, which is about $350, $370 right now. The goal is for as many families as possible to stack 1 million Satoshis during the month of February. And we're going to help people get started. We're going to give them, money to get it going, a few Satoshis. But yes, we're doing that all month. So make sure you tune in. And we want to, make sure everybody understands Bitcoin is more than just an investment that you can flip over and over. It's a different type of money. And you can definitely create generational wealth with it.
Hell yeah.
That's amazing. So cool.
Dante, what's been your experience with Clubhouse, man?
Actually, I've learned a lot just kind of through osmosis, being in the rooms with people. I got into this space early, and then I left the space for a couple of years, and I only came back because the number go up. You know what I mean? I'm looking at the news one day, and they're talking about the price of Bitcoin, and I was like, yo, I was doing that in like 2014, and I still got that password somewhere. Let me pull out this thing and let me see what it do. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I was like, wow, like this is like really a thing. I believed it was a thing then, and I still believe it's something now. But Clubhouse is awesome because it's a real opportunity to learn and, most importantly, network with people. To level up, you need to level up with people that are on a level you are not on. And so when I am in these rooms in Clubhouse, I am purposely in these rooms, and I try to be quiet and just kind of listen. Sometimes I'm jotting down notes. I'm like on meetings at work, and I have those meetings at work muted because I'm listening to something about.
I hear that, man.
You know what I mean? And I got a notebook. I'm writing down notes. But yeah, Clubhouse is an awesome opportunity to just learn, man, and just be around people and just absorb information from people.
Yeah, and just making friends too, man. Just making friends. Like,
Indeed.
there's public channels where it's just like a lot of education happening in Bitcoin channels. Like, we have a club called Cafe Bitcoin, and we do Monday nights Bitcoin for beginners. We're doing clubs every day, and it's mostly like, vacillates between like Bitcoiners up on stage kind of talking about news and whatever, and then bringing up people to ask questions. And it's great. But then there's also like these private rooms where you can just keep it to people who follow you or whatever. And it's a lot of fun. Like I was in one the other night with Lamar, and just like, it was kind of a small room, and I got to know him really well, just like, it was cool. I mean, I feel like I'm really genuinely making friends. Mm-hmm. And I was doing that on Twitter too, but this is just like mainlining new friendships. Twitter just takes a while to build up because it's all text, but this is just like high def TV compared to Twitter. And it's cool, man. I really enjoy it.
I want to really highlight the, I think Dante, you mentioned like learning by osmosis. And that's something that surprised me when I was earlier on in my kind of studies of Bitcoin. I went to a Bitcoin meetup here in LA, and I was like really shy, and it got to the Q&A at the end, and I was sitting next to my friend, and I'm just like, there's no way I can participate in this. I don't know enough. And I found myself actually participating, and it was because I had been listening to things that were above my knowledge level. Listen to things that you don't understand, and eventually it seeps its way in. And so I highly recommend anyone to keep, do that. Read books that you may not understand, get into these Clubhouse rooms. And, if you don't understand, like, give it a few minutes, like just sit there and try to absorb, because it happens. And it's definitely it's a thing. So we've been going for a while. And I think it's time we do our Bitcoin pitches and then make our way over to Clubhouse for a little Q&A.
Nice.
Who's ready? Who wants to give their best Bitcoin pitch? Volunteers, don't make me call on you.
I think Isaiah's probably done this, but you can. This is the way we do it with repeat guests. You can pitch to somebody else. We try to like pick a person or a type, a demographic, or like someone in your life. Like, I'm gonna pitch to my mom or a brother or one of my friends, and then because it's different,
right? So let's see. I have to pitch. Shit. You throwing in new rules. I don't know.
It's funny too. Like someone who like.
Okay, I'll pitch Bitcoin to my uncle who works for a bank who still doesn't believe in it. So I'll pitch
all right, perfect.
Perfect. All right, in 3, 2, 1.
Fuck that bank. Bitcoin is better.
That's it. Boom. 2.1 seconds.
I think it's the quickest pitch ever.
It's the quickest, and it works. It's good.
Fuck that bank.
I love it. Aulani, how do you feel about doing a pitch?
You know what? I couldn't sleep the other night thinking about it, so let me go for it. Ball's out here.
You knew it was coming.
Go for it.
Okay. This is for the newer people out there, don't wait to think you have to know everything about Bitcoin. Start with asking yourself, what is money? What do you value? Also question and look at the more money is being printed, the increasing of money being printed out is the question yourself and ask you about what's the, oh, I'm messing up here.
All right, we'll give you more time. We'll give you more time.
Okay, so it's just find out about money. Ask yourself, what is money? What is valued? What is happening when the government is printing more money? How does it affect you? And then also finding out more about Bitcoin and the value of it. And also, I think an important thing is to find out about technology. Like, where are we not just heading to, we're there already. So it's Bitcoin is a digital gold, if you will. We can exchange it in ways that it's not like I can send you something and usually there's a file left over and I'm too nervous. I fail. I think I needed another beer.
That's true, actually. Your ability to pitch Bitcoin goes up the more you drink, up to a certain point.
That was horrible. I think that pressure of knowing that minute is there, but don't listen. Here's a pitch. Don't listen to me. Research Bitcoin. Start stacking sats and learn more.
There you go. That was great.
Thanks.
All right, Dante, it's your turn, sir. Who are you? Who would you like to pitch Bitcoin to today?
Everybody.
We'll take it. In 3, 2, 1.
Americans are revolutionary. The Americans had a revolutionary war. The cotton gin revolutionized textiles and participated in the ending of slavery. Henry Ford in the assembly line had a revolution that spawned the Industrial Revolution. Transistors started the computer and communications revolution. In January of 2009, Bitcoin revolutionized finances. Be a revolutionary. Revolt. Revolt with Bitcoin.
Boom.
Oh yeah, new documentary coming out, baby.
Yeah, that voice takes it to another level.
That was my favorite one yet, man. That was my favorite one yet for sure. Let's get that and do something fun with it, Brecky. You're creative, man. You're the creative director.
I'm game.
Do something with that.
We'll do a video. We'll do like a video like Alex did if you want to, Dante. Let's we'll talk after this. I love it.
Sounds good, man.
Yeah, let's do a video for sure.
All right then.
I'm DMing with Matt O'Dill right now. He's gonna join us in Clubhouse. Sounds like afterwards.
Oh, awesome.
He was a little late, so he didn't want to jump in to interrupt. But he says we should pay him to read the white paper and share it all over the place. I think somebody said that last night too.
I'm here for that. I'm here for that.
That's what I said. Yeah, I said that earlier. Definitely. You got to read that white paper and have it.
I love it. All right, let's. I think we'll call that a great show, and we'll meander our way over to Clubhouse.
I want to hear Camilla.
Oh, Camilla! I didn't want to make you go after Dante. No,
I'm not gonna pitch, but I want to say something because I'm super excited about it. In Clubhouse, we're actually under the Cafe Bitcoin. We're actually starting a Bitcoin room for Latinos and Latino Americans. And so last night, it was amazing. We had people from South America talk about their experiences with Bitcoin and their stories and why it's so important. And it was just that, like Aulani said, that hunger, that need to understand it more and to see how we can share it in our communities, not only here in the United States, but in Latin America. So those rooms are going to be starting in Cafe Bitcoin. We actually have a companion chat as well that is going to be in Spanish. It was amazing because Corey came in last night and he started talking in Spanish, and I actually got DMs about how amazing that was. So
That's
stay tuned. We're going to be doing them on Thursdays. And I just want to say, Isaiah, super inspired by you as well, because when I first came into Bitcoin, you were one of those people that were just like really rooting for your own community. And I really want to do that for the Latino community as well. So thank you for the
Love it, man.
Yeah, do it.
This is where it's at.
Salute,
It's all
brother.
happening.
Hell
all
yeah.
happening.
And we, if you're watching the show right now and you'd like to see maybe a full-on Spanish language show on the Swan Signal, let us know in the comments, because I think we're open to that idea.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey Camilla, I'll be talking with Mayor Suarez from Miami soon, so I may need your help. Actually, I'll talk with you more after this. Yeah.
Translate. I'll do it.
Yeah.
All right, Dante, Isaiah, Aulani, this has been streaming on Clubhouse in a room that's been set up for a while, right? Since we started. So after we hang up here, let's head over there and we'll get up on stage, answer questions, and hang out. All right.
I love y'all. Buy
Thank you
Bitcoin.
guys so much.
Stack sats, buy Bitcoin. Buy Bitcoin.
Bye, Bitcoin. Horrible Dante impression. You lose. You know.
It's the best I could do, bro. That's
All right, everybody. We'll see you soon.